أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم والسابقون الأولون من المهاجرين والأنصار والذين اتبعوهم بإحسان رضي الله عنهم ورضوا عنه وأعد لهم جنات تجري تحتها الأنهار خالدين فيها أبدا ذلك الفوز العظيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, brothers and sisters. Request, if possible, the people, mashallah, scattered around. It's better if we come closer. If we come closer, we'd really appreciate that. And it gives us a chance to pick on some people as well. No, I'm just kidding. We'd like to see the faces, inshallah. I want to start by congratulating the brothers and sisters from Birmingham for their recent Eid in the Park. As the brother mentioned, I'm the imam, one of the imams at Redbridge Masjid, and they were the first to do Eid in the Park in their area 10 years ago. Did anyone do Eid in the Park 10 years ago here? No? And this Eid in the Park we had, alhamdulillah, around 20,000 people, but we heard, mashallah, that Birmingham Sharif brothers and sisters, they went to the next level. And to be honest, we'd like to say that we see the achievements of this masjid as a source of inspiration to us. And we'd like to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept your efforts. Every single one of the brothers and sisters who participated in putting that together, wallahi, it is, inshallah, going to be a source of great happiness for you in the life to come and even in this life. And from one masjid to another, I would really like to take my metaphorical hat off to you, mashallah. May Allah accept it all from you, ameen. Okay, this is the first in, I think it's 10 lectures, yeah? 10 lectures, inshallah, about the 10 promised paradise. And we will be studying the lives of the greatest people after the prophets of Allah to ever walk the face of this earth. They are the greatest bar none. And it's very important that we start off with the right understanding. Because what happens, you will listen to some amazing things that will blow your mind, and you will be in awe of these personalities. However, though that may be the case, very few of you will start to think that these people and these stories should actually inspire me to be like them. And part of the problem is that when we listen to these stories, we admire them, we respect them, we love them, but we don't see them as being role models that we can emulate to be like. We think they are way too amazing for myself to even think about being like. In fact, you may think, well, they're so amazing and I'm number zero. You know, I'm a zero. They're a hero, I'm a zero. So me, I'm an awful person. They are amazing people. But this verse which we just recited is very telling what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says. In this verse, in Surah Tawbah, verse number 100, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guarantees 3 categories of people paradise, as well as His pleasure. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala began by saying, وَالسَّابِقُونَ الْأَوَّلُونَ مِنَ الْمُهَاجِرِينَ وَالْأَنصَارِ وَالَّذِينَ اتَّبَعُوهُم بِإِحْسَانٍ. Allah says that there are 3. They have been guaranteed Allah's pleasure and paradise. Number 1 is Muhajiroun, those that emigrated with the Prophet ﷺ from Mecca to Medina. Number 2 are Al-Ansar, those Muslims in Medina who accommodated the Muslims from Mecca and believed alongside them. Then there is number 3. Number 3, those who followed them in goodness. What does that mean? Al-Baydawi said it refers to any person who follows them in iman and ta'ah until Yawm al-Qiyamah. Any person who follows them in terms of belief and in terms of his devoutness. This part of the verse opens the door for any other Muslim until the Day of Judgment to be part of this guarantee. And Allah tied that guarantee of paradise and pleasure to what? To the ability of people out there like us to live like they lived. As if Allah said, you want to go to paradise, you need to be like those people. And this is the amazing thing. How can you be like those people if you don't know how they lived? How can you be like them when you don't know about... Oh, that wasn't a question. We'll get to questions, inshallah. That wasn't... it is impossible to emulate and to live like the greatest people if you don't know about their lives and their biographies. And that's why studying their lives, number one, is very important, but number two is a way that should inspire us to act and to be greater, better people. Yeah, this should be your goal when you come here. That you want to learn something that will help you become a great person, and inshallah be of those Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has guaranteed paradise for. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us of those people. So the first person we will study shortly in this lecture, and to be honest, it's a challenge to speak about the life of Bakr as-Siddiq from beginning to end in less than an hour. Wallahi, it's a challenge. Inshallah, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us to do the best we can in this short time. The life of Bakr as-Siddiq, you can break it down into three parts. The first is before Islam. What was his life like before Islam? The second is his life as a companion of the Prophet ﷺ. And the third is his life as a Khalifa of the Muslims. Yeah, this is an easy way to break down his life into three parts. As for the first part, actually, subhanAllah, you know what? I just thought of something. You know how we said that we should look at the companions as role models and not as people who are so amazing that we cannot be like? Here, there's a story I want to share with you. And this story, it breaks down this myth that the companions, though they are the greatest, some people, they subconsciously believe that they are almost superhuman, infallible like angels. Have you ever come across people like this? They believe that the companions, wal-'iyadu billah, are like infallible angels, where this is not the case. And this is one story what I want to share with you, inshallah, which should make this point very clear. This story is found inside Sahih al-Bukhari, reported by Abu Darda. He said that one day Abu Bakr as-Siddiq comes into the masjid and he is holding his lower garment slightly up so you can see his knees, meaning he's coming in a state of haste. The Prophet ﷺ turns and he sees him and he says, your companion is clearly distressed. قَدْ غَامَرْ, he's become distressed. Abu Bakr comes and he sits in front of the Prophet ﷺ. And he says that something happened between me and Umar ibn al-Khattab. Other narrations we hear that they had an argument and Abu Bakr said something mean to Umar. Then what happened, he says to the Prophet ﷺ, is that I went to his house to apologize. And Umar refused to accept my apology and closed the door in my face. Oof. And now I come to you because I don't know what to do. At this point, the Prophet ﷺ says, Yaghfirullahu laka ya Abu Bakr, 3 times. He says, may Allah forgive you, Abu Bakr. May Allah forgive you, may Allah forgive you. Meaning, don't worry, Allah will forgive you for what you did. Now what happens is, Umar comes into the masjid. He comes into the masjid equally distressed. And he sees the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet's face appears to be angry and upset. And the Prophet's face was always, beaming like the full moon. So when he became upset, you could tell. He saw him upset and he sat to his right side. He gave him salams. The Prophet ﷺ ignored him. Umar became very uneasy. He stood up, he went to the other side, he sat on his left. He gave him salam again and he ignored him again. And then he sat right in front of him and he said, what good is there in my life if you ignore me? SubhanAllah. Then Abu Bakr, now listen to this. He's sitting there, he sees what's happening, he starts to feel sorry for Umar. He stands up on his knees and he says, Wallahi, I wronged him twice as much as he wronged me. He first came to complain, now he's trying to intercede. He sees a situation that is getting embarrassing for Umar. He says, Wallahi, I did twice as much wrong as he did to me. And then the Prophet ﷺ, he says something. He says that when I was sent to you all, every one of you said, Kadhabta, you're a liar. Except for this man, he said, Sadaqta, you have spoken the truth. And he has helped me with his money and his life like no one else. Will you people not leave my companion alone? Said it twice. Will you not leave my companion alone? Now this hadith is amazing, isn't it? It's so beautiful. First of all, it shows us that the companions of the Prophet ﷺ were, though the greatest human beings, they were still human beings. This is like, drama that happened in the life of the companions, isn't it? This is like the ups and downs. They argued, they said some mean things to each other. They refused to accept apologies. In another narration, after Umar closed the door on Abu Bakr's face, he started to feel guilty. He went to Abu Bakr's house to ask for forgiveness, and they said, he's not here, go to the Masjid. And that's when he came to the Masjid. Now, the first lesson is that the companions of the Prophet ﷺ, they were human beings. They were not angels. The second lesson is that it illustrates that Abu Bakr is number one. That's what it shows. That Abu Bakr as-Siddiq was the number one in the eyes of the Prophet ﷺ, and no one could rival him, because the second person who was being spoken to was Umar al-Khattab, and he is after Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. The third lesson it teaches us is that if anger can come to the likes of Abu Bakr, then surely it can come to any one of us. But this is the fourth lesson, is the most important one. You see, though here Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala showed a shortcoming in saying something mean to Umar, and though Umar showed a shortcoming in refusing to accept the apology of Abu Bakr, we find that their mistakes were not like our mistakes. And number two, their behavior after making mistakes was not like our behavior after we make mistakes, isn't it? First of all, their mistakes were very minor and few and far between. As for ours, they are big and they happen regularly. May Allah have mercy on us. Secondly, when they made mistakes, they did everything they could to put it right. As for us, when we have, our arguments with our friends and family, we're probably the last people to try and make up. In fact, maybe we have to wait till Eid, when you gotta go say salam to my uncle now, it's Eid day, or we're gonna go to their house now, I'm gonna have to start talking to them now. Literally, you have to be forced in order to make peace with people. This all happened in the space of a few hours. That, if one of us was in that situation, we wronged someone, we said, Akhi, listen, forgive me, I was wrong. And then he closed the door in my face, Wallahi, I'll never speak to him again, isn't it? That's what most probably would say, Ya dafa karo. I tried my best, he doesn't want to make up with me. Fine, it's his loss, isn't it? As for Abu Bakr, after going to Umar and having the door closed in his face, he then went to the Prophet ﷺ. You know why? Because when you wrong someone, there's a chance that person will take revenge on Yawm al-Qiyamah. And you would rather be the oppressed than the oppressor on the Day of Judgment, true or not? And that is what motivated them to try and do whatever they could to right their wrongs. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us from this. So as for Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, it's very hot, Are you not feeling hot? Feeling very hot. What was the real name of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq? This was his laqab, his nickname given to him by his father. It was not his real name, nor was it a kunya. The kunya is the father of so-and-so. This was not the case because he was not the father of anyone when he was given this name. Abu Bakr is not his real name. It's his title, nickname. What was his real name? Anyone know? Yes. Abdullah. Ahsant, mashallah. His name was Abdullah, the son of Abu Quhafa is another nickname. MashaAllah. This is the son of who? Father is here? No? MashaAllah, tabarakallah. May Allah preserve you. Abdullah ibn Uthman. Not a lot of people even know this. That the real name of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq is Abdullah ibn Uthman. His father, his nickname was Abu Quhafa or Abu Qahafa. Two ways of pronouncing it. His story is very interesting because even though his son becomes number one Muslim, from the very beginning, he resisted to become a Muslim until the last moment, and that was Fath Makkah. When the Muslims conquered Makkah, Abu Quhafa was so old, he was blind as well. He couldn't walk. And so Abu Bakr, he said, now the time has come to accept Islam. Now we've come to conquer Mecca. So he said, okay, take me to the Prophet ﷺ. They brought him on a shield, carrying him. And when they came to the Prophet ﷺ, the Prophet ﷺ said, rather you should have left the Shaykh at home, we would have come to him. Subhanallah. Imagine a man who refused to believe in you for 15 years. Refused. And now he's time to become Muslim, and he's the person saying, now listen, I should have come to him. No, he should have come to me. This is, subhanAllah, not just honoring of Abu Quhafa as an elderly man, but this is honoring Abu Bakr. He's your father. I love you. You deserve more honor than this. I should have come to him. And you know what Abu Bakr as-Siddiq said? He said that rather in his place was Abu Talib, because you would have become happier with the Islam of Abu Talib than the Islam of my father. Subhanallah. He wished that rather Abu Talib had become Muslim rather than my father. Why? Because it would have pleased the Prophet ﷺ more if that would have happened. And this shows us the incredible love Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu had for the Prophet ﷺ. So this was Abu Bakr as-Siddiq's rule, and Abdullah ibn Uthman. Now, we said that the first part of his life is pre-Islam. It's quite amazing that Abu Bakr as-Siddiq was a very unique person even before he became Muslim. As-Suyuti mentioned a number of things. First of all, he never drank alcohol, even though drinking was part of the culture of the Arabs at that time. Number two, he was not a womanizer. He never committed zina, wal-iyadhu billah, even though it was common. And number three, he never once venerated an idol, which is amazing, because everyone in Mecca was a mushrik, an idol worshipper. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq never once bowed down to an idol. Another unique thing about Abu Bakr as-Siddiq is that he was a scholar of Ansab. Ilm al-Ansab is the knowledge of genealogy. It is the knowledge of people's backgrounds, their lineage, families, so on and so forth. And that's why Ibn Hajar mentioned that Prophet ﷺ, whenever he used to go visit different tribes, he would take Abu Bakr with him, because he would tell him the background history of everyone, and he would use that in order to give da'wah. So this was another unique thing. He was a scholar of Ilm al-Ansab. Lastly, another amazing thing about Abu Bakr before Islam is that he was very wealthy. Okay, and here As-Suyuti brings a narration that Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, when he became a Muslim, he had 40,000 to his name. Now there's two narrations. First narration is that he had 40,000 dirhams to his name, silver coins. Another narration is that he had 40,000 dinars, gold coins. And just to equate that, 40,000 dinars, if we said that 1 dinar is like 4 grams of pure gold, then 40,000 dinars is like the equivalent of having 5 million pounds. But that's 5 million pounds today. 40,000 dinars today is not like the 40,000 dinars back then. Back then it used to be worth a lot more, which means that Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, according to his second narration, was a multi-millionaire. He was a multi-millionaire. Then Ibn Hajar said that when he arrived at Medina, you know how much money he had left? 5,000. 5,000 dinars. Which means he spent 35,000 in the cause of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He spent his fortune in freeing slaves and promoting Islam to the people of Mecca. And this is very important, subhanAllah, that Abu Bakr as-Siddiq didn't earn his rank by way of favor. He didn't earn his rank just because the Prophet liked him as a friend. Rather, he earned his rank through sacrifice. And one of the main ways he sacrificed was with his money. Until Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah said that every verse in the Quran that praises people that give sadaqah, the first person it refers to is Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. Every verse in the Quran, inna alladhina, those that spend fi sarra'i wal dharra, spend their wealth in good and bad times, those who give a goodly loan to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Any verse praising people who give money for the sake of Allah, the first person it refers to is Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anhu. And that's very important in our times, because just like in Mecca, there were no mosques to fund. There were no institutions to build. Rather, Muslims were living as a minority trying to survive. In a very similar way, Muslims today, their focus is not really on establishing institutions, but rather it is propagating the message. And the institutions are merely a vehicle to propagate the message. But here we find that there's a shortcoming in our mentality. Muslims would rather spend their money on the building itself than the message being promoted. True or not? That the focus isn't on getting the message of Islam out there, using whatever means possible, but rather it is getting the 4 walls set up and getting the names of the committee members established. As long as the building doesn't fall down, khalas, we are successful. Rather, the main sacrifice of the money is to promote the message of Islam. And Abu Bakr as-Siddiq spent loads of money trying to propagate Islam. So this is before Islam. That he was known to be a unique person, and he was a scholar, and he was very rich, and so on and so forth. The only other thing to mention is Abu Bakr as-Siddiq was loved by the people of Makkah. He was loved. Because he was an honorable person, because he was from Banu Taym, one of the prestigious sub-tribes, and because of his character as well. That is why his conversion to Islam is even more amazing. Because when he converts, he is only 2 years younger than the Prophet ﷺ. So how old was he when he became Muslim? 38. 38 years old. Now imagine a 38-year-old man who is a multi-millionaire and he is loved by his community. What do you think is going to happen to him if he decides to become Muslim? What's going to happen to him? Are people going to like him? If you've got a reputation amongst your people and you're going to go against them by listening to this man Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you're going to basically be putting your reputation at risk, and you're going to be putting your fortune at risk as well, isn't it? People may not do business with you anymore. People may turn against me. And that is why it is amazing that as soon as Abu Bakr as-Siddiq is approached by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he accepts Islam. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would say that every person I invited to accept Islam, he would show taraddud and nazar, which means hesitation, and he would think about it carefully. Except for Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu ta'ala. When I asked him and invited him, he had no hesitation to accept my message. And that is why it is said that he was the first man, free man, to accept Islam. The first was Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu ta'ala. And as soon as he accepts Islam, you know what his main focus is? Is to get more people to accept Islam. Until Aisha radiyallahu ta'ala said that when the Muslims numbered 83 in Makkah, Abu Bakr came to the Prophet and he said, Ya Rasulullah, let us now go public. And the Prophet said, don't be hasty. Inna qaleel. He said, we're just a few. Which reflects on the strategy of the Prophet. He was looking at it from many different aspects. We're not enough in number to go to the next level yet. Abu Bakr was zealous. And he said, no, let's do it. He said, no. And what happened is that one day, the Muslims were, sitting in their different groups amongst their people around the Kaaba. And Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, he saw an opportunity to do da'wah. Because he saw, okay, some Muslims are intermingling there, some there, some there. He stood up at the Kaaba and he gave a khutbah. This was the first khutbah of Islam. And when he called the people to accept the message of the Prophet ﷺ, the people became enraged. Enraged until they stood up and started to surround him. And then, I think it was Utbah, this evil man, he was the first one to go up to him and start to beat him. Then everyone else started to beat Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anhu, until this man, Utbah, he got his shoe and started to beat Abu Bakr on his face. His face became bloodied, and it is said that his face became so disfigured that you couldn't tell the back of his head from the front of his face. That is what happened to him. Now, subhanAllah. When that happened, his clan's people, Banu Taym, they came and said, if he dies, we're going to come after you. And so they stopped and they took him to his home. Here, his mother, who they said her name is Layla or Salama, she was not Muslim now. When he came round from unconsciousness, you know the first thing he said? Ma fa'ala Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What happened to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? That's the first thing on his mind, is the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. She said, what is wrong with you? Why are you asking about him for? He said, what happened to him? Take me to him. He couldn't even walk. And so she called for two people she trusted to take him on their shoulder to Dar ibn al-Arqam. Yeah, the place where the Muslims would gather. And the Prophet saw him coming, face bloodied, barely able to walk. And as he came close to the Prophet, the first thing he said, are you okay? The Prophet said, am I okay? What happened to you? And he said, this is nothing except for that, he said, the fasiq who hit me on my face. Everything else is fine. He said, I want to know, how are you? Now at that moment, the mother of Abu Bakr was also there. And she felt overwhelmed by what she saw. And she said, let me take my shahada now with the Prophet ﷺ. And at that moment, she took her shahada. And she became a Muslim. And that story, subhanAllah, shows us that, wallah, when you do something for the sake of Allah, Allah brings change into your life. His mother was impacted by what happened. And she was so overwhelmed that she said, you know what, it is time for me to become a Muslimah too. And she accepted Islam. So this was Abu Bakr during the Meccan era. He was very zealous, wanting to always propagate the message of Islam. There by the side of the Prophet, he was responsible for calling 5 out of the 10 promised paradise to Islam. Yeah, the 5 out of the 10, he was responsible for calling them to Islam. And this shows us that, subhanAllah, when the person is quick to do good, he is the one who will benefit the most. Because all of those people that become Muslim afterwards, all of their good deeds and everyone who's inspired by them, a copy of that will all go to the account of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anhu. Yeah? It shows us that we should be quick to do good deeds. Don't wait for other people. And I remember something strange happened this Taraweeh. First time ever I saw this. I was sitting in the front saf and the Imam made a mistake. What happened is that instead of praying 2 rak'ah, he prayed 1. Prayed 1, Assalamu alaikum, Assalamu alaikum. Now the thing is, obviously when he gets out from sajda, he's in tashahhud. I'm thinking, he prayed 1, didn't he? Oh, I'm not sure. I'm thinking, surely the Imam next to me, he would know. You know what he's thinking? Surely the Imam next to me, he would know. Now, as soon as he says, Assalamu alaikum, commotion. People say, what happened there? Did he pray 1? Did he pray 2? I turned to the uncle, I said, uncle, what happened? Did he pray 1? He goes, no, he prayed 2. Because in the first rak'ah I stand up, in the second rak'ah I sit down. I'm sitting down. Didn't realize what's going on. So we said, no, Shaykh, we think you prayed 1. The Shaykh goes, yeah, I prayed 1. And then he stood up and he prayed what? He prayed another 1. Because that's what you're supposed to do. Pray 1 more to make it 2. Now the first time people were confused. The second time they were like, what? He's done it again? How is this possible? And then we stood up to explain the masala to the people. But the point of that story is that human beings, we have this, we wait for others to act before we act, isn't it? We feel shy to be the first ones to act. But this is something we find was not the case for Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. He was not shy to be the first one to act, if he knew it was correct. And they said, actually this is a statement of Aisha radiyallahu anha, that the very reason he attained the title as-Siddiq was because of this reason. Because when the Prophet went on the night journey, al-Isra' wal-Mi'raj, and he came back, he told the people only half of the story, which is that he went from Mecca to Baytul Maqdis. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala liberate that land for the Muslims. And when he told them, the people, the enemies of Islam, started to make fun of him. And then they went out looking for his followers. Until they came to Abu Bakr as-Siddiq and they said, are you going to believe this? Your sahib said that he went to Baytul Maqdis in one night, he returned even before the morning. What do you say about this? Now reflect. Something like this happens to us on a daily basis. People come to us, they interrogate us. They say, Islam says this. It's ridiculous, isn't it? What do you say? What do you say about Islam's position on X, Y, Z? Interrogation, and they want to see your reaction. SubhanAllah. Same thing. Abu Bakr said, he said, لو كان قال ذلك صدقة. Listen to his statement. If he said that, he spoke the truth. This statement points towards not only the iman of Abu Bakr, but also his aql, his intellect. You know why? Because he never said, I believe it. He said, if he said it, then I believe it. Meaning, my acceptance is pending on verification. SubhanAllah, ajib. In that moment, that heated moment where, the report comes up to you, goes, by the way, you Muslimic people, what do you say about segregation? Anybody would start to, become nervous, confused, not be able to think straight. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, subhanallah al-azim, he saw everything so straight. And then he went further. Ajib. He said, how can I not believe this when I believe in something more than this, which is that he receives revelation from the heavens? As if to say, the fact that he went to Bayt al-Maqdis one night is nothing compared to the fact that he received revelation from Allah. Subhanallah. It shows us his faith was so strong that the first reaction was a reaction of Iman. May Allah give us this. And then she said, فَلِذَلِكَ سُمِّيَ أَبُو بَكْرَ as-Siddiq. She said, and that is the very reason why he was given the title as-Siddiq, which means that the title as-Siddiq means more than honesty. It means more than honesty. Not only was he honest, but it means he was quick to affirm the truth. That's what it means. He was very quick to affirm and accept the truth. This is a quality of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq which we should also aspire to have. So this is the Meccan era, and because of time, now the Madani era. Now we all know that the only person to accompany the Prophet ﷺ during Hijrah was Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anhu. It's a very interesting narration, subhanAllah, that after many years after the demise of the Prophet ﷺ, one of the companions, Al-Azib, this hadith is in the Musnad of Imam Ahmad. He sold a horse to Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, and Abu Bakr as-Siddiq said to him that, bring me the horse when you're done with it. Here Azib, the father of Bara, he said, I'll give you the horse once you tell me something to do with the Hijrah. Yeah, I'm not going to give it to you that easily. I want some knowledge in return. Yeah, I want some knowledge in return. He said, okay, I'll tell you some things. He told him something, subhanAllah, amazing. He said that after we left the ghar, the cave, we traveled for one day. And then when the sun became at its hottest, I looked for shade and I saw a boulder in the horizon. And I took the Prophet ﷺ to the boulder. There was shade, and I said to the Prophet ﷺ, why don't you get some rest, sleep here? And he said, I put out a mat for him to sleep on. Then he said that the Prophet ﷺ took rest under that shade. Then when we got up, we saw some people approaching. There were some Bedouins, and I said to them, could we have some milk from the udder of this, I think it was a camel or a sheep, in order for my companion? They said, okay. And so before he milked the udder, he cleaned it. He didn't want any dirt to go into the milk. Then he milked the animal. With the milk, he gave it to the Prophet ﷺ, and he said the Prophet ﷺ drank his fill. Thereafter, he said that when we set off on our journey, we saw someone in the horizon. It was Suraqa. Suraqa gave us chase, and as he came closer, he came close enough to fire an arrow, and I became so worried I began to cry. Then the Prophet looked at me, and he looked at me to ask, why are you crying? And before he could respond, I said to him, I'm not crying over myself, rather I'm crying over you. I'm scared that something might happen to you. And he said, لا تحزن إن الله معنا. He said the same thing again. He said, do not fear, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is with us. And then he made a dua, Allahumma kfini bima shit. Oh Allah, protect me in whichever way you deem to be fit. This is a very amazing dua. Whenever you are in a situation of need, always ask Allah, Allahumma kfini, oh Allah, suffice me whichever way you deem fit. And then the miracle happened where the legs of the horse of Suraqa began to sink into the sand. This narration is showing us how much Abu Bakr as-Siddiq loved the Prophet ﷺ and how much he would care for him as well. Now, during his life in Medina, Abu Bakr as-Siddiq did something which very few companions were able to do. And that is, he fought alongside the Prophet ﷺ in every single battle. He attained that badge of honor. Every battle from Badr to Uhud, Ahzab, Khandaq, Khaybar, all of them, he was there fighting alongside the Prophet ﷺ, and that's why he's mentioned in a lot of them. However, I want to share with you some other things which you may not be aware of. First of all, there is this story of Finhas, the Jewish rabbi. Anyone heard this story about Abu Bakr and the Jewish rabbi? Finhas? No? Allah, it's a very interesting story. What happened is that the Jewish community, they used to have this institute. They used to call it Baytul Mudaras, where the Jews would merely study their religion and so on and so forth. And they used to have a scholar amongst them whose name was Finhas. Abu Bakr went to visit them once. He went inside their temple or this place, and he said to Finhas, Wayhak. Wayhak, he said, woe to you, has not the time for you to come to accept Islam? Imagine that, bowling up into Jewish temple and saying, what's wrong with you people, you should become Muslim now. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, he did this. He went to them and he said, what's wrong with you, you should become Muslim now. And then he said, you know that the name of Muhammad is mentioned in your book. Now listen to what this man said. Finhas, he said that we are not in need of Allah. Allah is in need of us, wal-iyadhu billah. He said, Inna Allah faqirun ilayna, la ilaha illallah. He said, Allah is a faqir to us, subhanallah. And then he said, because he asked us and we don't ask him. Apparently your companion said Allah asks for a loan. He's referring to the verse in the Quran, Man dhal ladhi yuqridu Allah qardan hasana. Who is it out there who will give a goodly loan to Allah? Look what he said. Said the most offensive thing. What did Abu Bakr as-Siddiq do? Anyone know what he did? Huh? No. فَغَضِبَ Abu Bakr. He became so angry and he smacked him in the face. ضَرْبَةً شَدِيدَةً. With one hefty blow. After he got hit in the face, he's like, what's going on here? He went to complain to the Prophet ﷺ. And he came to him and said, look what your companion did to me. He smacked me in the face. And here, the Prophet ﷺ, he called for Abu Bakr. And he said, why did you do this? He said, because he said Allah is a faqir. Wal-iyadhu billah. Then the Prophet turned to Finhas. He said, did you say this? He began to lie. He said, no, I didn't say this. Thereafter, Allah revealed two verses in Surah Al-Imran, verse number 181 and verse number 185. The first verse, Allah said, قَدْ سَمِعَ اللَّهُ قَوْلَ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ فَقِيرٌ وَنَحْنُ أَغْنِيَاءٌ. Allah said, He truly heard those people who said, Allah is a faqir, وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ, and we are rich. وَنَكْتُبُ مَا قَالُوا. Allah said, we have written down what they said and the killing of the prophets, and we will surely punish them. Yeah, we will surely punish them in a blazing fire. Then Allah revealed another verse. وَلَتَسْمَعَنَّ. Allah said to Abu Bakr now. That one was referring to the Jews. This one to Abu Bakr. He said to Abu Bakr, you will surely hear many things from the people of the book and the polytheists that will upset you. But if you have patience and taqwa, that is from the great affairs. That is from the great matters. So what is interesting about this story is a number of things. First of all, once again it shows us that the companions of the Prophet were human beings. Yes, they were not angels. Secondly, it teaches us that, when people insult Islam, by the way, do people do that now? They do, no? People insult Islam, people insult the Prophet, people insult the Quran, so on and so forth. What should our reaction be? What should... Should this be the reaction? Right hand? No. This ayah shows us two things, very important. The first is that the believer should be annoyed and angry when people insult Islam. Number one. This is very important because there are some people out there, when, for example, the cartoon fiasco took place, they said, Muslims, ignore it. Just pretend it didn't happen. Allah will take care of them. Have you heard this kalam before? Leave it to Allah, Allah will deal with it. You shouldn't get angry about these things. Have you heard this? I went on the BBC radio, yeah, there was an interview. They asked me to participate. There were 3 Muslims. And they said, what's your reaction to the cartoons about the Prophet ﷺ? And one man, wallah, he said that, I'm not angry. Because they drew someone, that's not the Prophet ﷺ. I said, subhanAllah, yani, where did this come from? You're not angry because that's not the Prophet ﷺ. Of course it's not the Prophet ﷺ, but they intended to draw the Prophet ﷺ. They intended to insult him. And the cartoons were not cartoons, they were like pornographic cartoons. Yeah? Maybe you don't know this, but they were, explicit type of disgusting things. Anyway, so I said to the person on the radio, I said, to be honest, I couldn't disagree with you more. I said, if someone insulted my wife, I would not say, they're insulting her, but she's not like that, so I don't get angry. In fact, if I said to the person who insulted my wife, I'm not angry, people would question my love for my wife. Isn't that true? They will say, are you sure this is your wife? You sure you love her? Yeah? People are just slating her off and you're not even getting angry. So we are angry. But as the ayah teaches us, the way that anger should be translated with wisdom. And the objective of the reaction should be to stop the munkar, to stop the evil. Yes, this should be the reaction, that we are angry and we will do whatever we can out of wisdom to make sure it doesn't happen again. We don't want to happen again. We will do whatever we can to stop this. This is the story of Finhas. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us through the benefits of this story. We need to finish what time? 2 minutes? 10 minutes? Okay, inshallah. We'll move on to the final part of his life. So what was the first part? Before Islam. Then it is his life as a companion of the Prophet ﷺ. And then the last part is? What is the last part? The Khilafah. Yeah, the Khilafah of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu. There's 3 things that happened during his reign as a Khalifa, which are the most notable of everything that took place. You see, when he became the Khalifa, there was only 2 years left of his life. Yeah. When the Prophet passed away, it was in the 11th Hijri year. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq passed away in the 13th Hijri year. So literally it's only 2 years. But what took place in those 2 years is unbelievable. First of all, the challenges began straight away. There was an army of Usama ibn Zayd radiallahu anhu. This companion of the Prophet was only 19 years old, and the Prophet put him in charge of the army to go and fight the Byzantine, the Eastern Roman Empire. However, as soon as they left Medina, the Prophet passed away. You can imagine the devastation that afflicted the Muslims upon the death of the Prophet. It's the greatest calamity to afflict this ummah until Yawm al-Qiyamah. People began to say, this is not the right time for us to go to war. Let us call back the army of Usama ibn Zayd. It was only Abu Bakr as-Siddiq in the beginning who said, no, I cannot call them back. They came back, in fact, and he said, go back to where you came from. They said, how can you tell them to go to war after knowing what has happened? He said, in a very famous quote, rather that birds of prey snatch my body away than I give a verdict over the verdict of the Prophet ﷺ. Subhanallah. Unbelievable. The conviction in Abu Bakr, ajib. When everyone is saying, listen, this is not the right thing to do, he's like, it is the right thing to do. And what would happen, subhanallah, is that in hindsight, people would come to realize that Abu Bakr was right in his decision all along. And that is why Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah said, there is an ijma', a consensus, that the most knowledgeable of all the companions of the Prophet ﷺ is who? Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu. And these decisions, his ijtihad, points towards that he was the most knowledgeable. So this is the first thing, the army of Usama ibn Zayd. The second is what? What 2 other things are so notable that happened during his khilafah? What did he do which really stood out? What happened during his khilafah? Anyone know? All of a sudden there was problems. Now, there was the Hurub Ridda, the Wars of Apostasy. See, what happened is that as soon as the Prophet passed away, the surrounding Arab tribes who were Muslim, they split into 3. First were those that went back to Jahiliyyah, started worshipping idols all over again. Second were those that started to follow the false prophets. Of them was Musaylim al-Kadhab, and another was a false prophetess, a woman who claimed to be a prophet. Anyone know her name? Huh? No one? Sajjah. Sajjah, she was a Christian poet. She became Muslim, and then she claimed to be a prophet. Yeah. What is ajib, Allah, is that Sajjah had a bigger army than Musaylima. She came to attack Musaylima, then to attack the Muslims in Medina. And Musaylima, when he caught wind that they're coming to attack him, you know what he did? Al-Tabari mentioned this ajib story. He said that he made a luxurious marquee outside of Yamama. And he invited Sajjah for a debate. And what he did is that he basically lured her into this big marquee. She saw so many lavish things, she became impressed with him. And he said, the story gets a bit funny as well, I'll cut out the funny parts. But basically, the long and short of it is that he managed to persuade her to share the prophethood. To share the prophet. He said, why don't you say you're the prophet and I'm the prophet? We share it. So they came out of the tent, and this is where it gets so ajib. Her followers said, if you're going to be a prophet alongside her, you need to get married. He said, okay. But they said, no, we want the highest dowry you can imagine. You know what he said? He said that your prophet, meaning the Prophet ﷺ, this is ajib because they still said he's a prophet and we're prophets. He said, your prophet gave you 5 salah. My mahr to her is I drop 2 salah for you. Ajib, isn't it? You couldn't make this stuff up. He said, the Fajr and the Isha, khalas, my gift to you, you don't need to pray this anymore. Now the story doesn't finish there. What happened is that Sajjah went back to Najd, where she was from, and then Musaylima is attacked by Khalid ibn Walid and defeated. When he is killed, they come for the people of Najd. When she hears that the Muslims are going for Najd, what does she do? She goes into exile, and then she becomes a Muslim, a true Muslim, and she ends her life as a pious lady, subhanallah. Ajib, you should never, and it shows us that you should never think that someone is too far gone from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If a woman can claim to be a prophetess, try to kill another false prophet, and then end up being a righteous lady, what can we say about anybody else? Huh? So anyway, Hurb al-Ridda, what happened is that Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, once again, he was the only person to say, we need to go fight these people. So the first category was who? Those that went back to Jahiliyyah. The second was the people who followed false prophets. The third was who? The third were the group of people who refused to give zakat. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq was of the opinion that we should go to war with all of them. All of them. Here, even Umar al-Khattab was like, no, this is too much. We shouldn't do that straight away. Rather, we should consolidate our power. Abu Bakr said, no, we need to go fight them all. And so he waged a campaign against all of those tribes, and slowly but surely they defeated all of them until they came to Musaylim al-Kadhab, who had an army, they said, in the thousands. And there, the Muslims faced a very tough battle. 70 of the notable companions lost their lives as shaheed during that battle, and of them was Abu Dujana. Now what happened is that this incident triggered the third most important achievement of Abu Bakr's life. Anyone know what that is? That's right. Yes, the compilation of the Quran, Jam' al-Quran. Because in that battle, many of the companions who lost their lives were those that had memorized the Quran. When that happened, Umar came to Abu Bakr and said that, look at what has just happened. The Quran is, at this point, not written down in one book form. Rather, it is in the hearts of people and written down in some, in the form of sheets, parchments, leather, so on and so forth, amongst many different people. We need to compile the Quran in between 2 covers. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq said, no, we can't do that. How can I do something that the Prophet did not do? Here, Umar al-Khattab kept on trying to persuade him until Abu Bakr said, Allah opened my chest to this idea. And then he instructed Zayd ibn Thabit, radiallahu anhu, to head up a team of companions who would gather together all of the written forms of the Quran as well as testimony from companions who had also memorized the part that they had written down, until the entire Quran, piece by piece, was gathered together in between these two covers. And they said that the first mushaf, or the first copy of the Quran, was one string, long string, and they had lots of different parchments, leather skins and different types of material, all put together on one string. And this was the first compiled Quran, subhanAllah. Who was the one who did this? It was Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, which means, subhanAllah, that every time you pick up a mushaf, the person who Allah chose to put it together like this was Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, radiyallahu anhu, subhanAllah. Ajib. This is the legacy of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. And wallahi al-azim, there's so much to say about his life, but the concluding message, my brothers and sisters, is the reason he is number one is because of two things. Number one, when he believed, he acted straight away. And number two is he used all of his talents and his resources to champion Islam. That is why. And Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, he said something amazing. He said, the ayah in Surah Al-Hadid, لا يستوي منكم. He said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that you're not all the same. من أنفق من قبل الفتح وقاتل. Allah said that those people who spent and fought before the conquest of Mecca are much better than those that spent and fought after the conquest of Mecca. He said something amazing. He said that Allah is showing us here that the reason Group A is better than Group B is not because they believed first. It is because they sacrificed first. Because he said, Umar ibn Khattab did not become Muslim straight away. He became Muslim after 6 years. But he's number two. Why? Because he sacrificed more than other people. And this shows us, my brothers and sisters, that the legacy of the companions is one of sacrifice. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala values the sacrifice more in difficult times. And this is the times that we are living in. That it is more difficult to be Muslim today than it might have been 10, 20 years ago. So if a person manages to sacrifice in these times, in these Islamophobic times, then Allah will value your sacrifice more than the sacrifice of other people. Yeah? May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inspire us with the legacy of Bakr as-Siddiq. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us from the lessons we have learned from his life. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for an eternity bless and send his mercy upon Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu ta'ala. Jazakumullah khairan wa barakallahu fikum.